Hello, everybody. Yes, we are live. And for those of you that have been tuning in to this podcast or watching the videos, you will recognize our lovely guest, who is Master of the Stars, Aleks. And welcome, Aleks. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Last day of quarantine.
Woohoo, woohoo. I know. My goodness, it's amazing, isn't it? How, we're all required to do all of these, quarantining and isolation. And I feel like it's all perhaps coming to an end. So this could be, I was talking to my niece earlier and I was saying, when we're old and in our rocking chairs, we're going to say, when we were younger, we had to isolate and we had to do this. It won't be the war. It will be talking about, how we had to, do crazy stuff and isolate when we came into contact with people.
Yeah, and how you couldn't work for a year because everyone was scared of the virus, and
my goodness,
and how all the gyms were shut down.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, she was just looking at me quite bemused when I was talking about it. But anyway, I am excited today because we are going to be talking about romance, and we're going to be talking about romance from an astrological perspective. So we've talked a bit about this in the past. We've had little snippets and people were flooding me with questions and we want to know more. How do we find our perfect mate? How do we, all these questions. So I think we have to delve into this a little bit further. So can you first of all give us a little bit of background? Why would astrology be any use to us at all when looking for a partner? How would that work? Why is that important?
So within each of us, each of the planets actually represents an archetype within us. And so, for example, the sun is the basic template of the personality. The moon is the inner child, Mercury is the communicator. And then we also have very specifically Venus and Mars. And they indicate to us the divine masculine and the divine feminine within, right? And so when we look at astrology, because relationships are all about that interplay of that divine masculine and feminine energy, right? And so when we look at astrology, we have the ability to really tune into that essence of the divine masculine and the divine feminine in someone's chart. And that can indicate harmonious natures, or it can also indicate how to bring more harmony. Right? A lot of people look at astrology and they go, either we're compatible or we're not. And I don't believe that, actually. It's all about how can you take it and find a common thread? How can you make it work? And so when you have a deeper understanding of each other's natures, that's when you have the ability to do that.
Now, I like that approach. I do like that approach because my understanding of it has been when people have the charts done and you're not a good match, it's kind of like just throwing that person. But what you're saying is that it doesn't necessarily, we're not looking for the perfect match. What we're looking for is that the common threads. Yeah.
Right? Because, of course, in the modern mystery school, we look at things other than astrology. So, for example, when there's a reading called the Purpose of Life reading, where you look into things like contracts, right? And what happens if you do have a relationship contract with someone and the two of you are meant to learn, together and to grow a lot and to have a beautiful relationship? But you go to an astrologer and they say, you two aren't a good match. What happens? Are you going to miss out on something amazing because somebody told you not to even bother? So that's one of my pet peeves.
Yes, I like that. And, again, it's working with the information and it's not just using it to disregard or to or to say, this isn't right for me, or this isn't, or I can't sign a contract in Mercury retrograde, or I can't do this. It is going back to that, what you've said before. We're using this as a tool to enhance, our experiences, or to learn. We're not using it as a we shouldn't do this or we shouldn't do that. So then we're applying these rules again to romance. So if we're applying the rules from, what should we be looking for, Aleks? What is a good chart? What are we looking for?
Well, before I get into what's a good chart, there's a point I want to make, especially for people who haven't really received any mystery school teachings. When it comes to astrology, when people telling you, don't do this, don't do that, that kind of thing, I'm going to tell you a secret. Within you, there is a magician, there is an alchemist. And you have the ability, when you understand the essence of what you're working with, you have the ability to work with it, to shift it, and sometimes even to change the frequency, right? Take it from a lower frequency to a higher frequency. And so we can't forget when we're working with astrology, that alchemist, that magician exists within. And so it's not about do or do not. It's about, how can I work with this? If I truly value and desire it, how can I work with it?
Yes, the master of your own life, and the, taking those decisions and discerning. Yes, absolutely. I love that. And not being afraid because somebody, doesn't have the perfect chart, or we don't have the perfect planet in the right place at the right time, or, whatever. I think we sometimes take that for granted as mystery school students, that we have that mindset. We are very independent. We are very not reliant on circumstances, or, we don't delve into, well, this has happened to me, or that's happened to me, so this can't then be true. We change everything. Like you say, we're magicians. And I think because we come from that place all of the time, we forget that others don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that I found, I guess, with just the spiritual world in general, is we're looking for the person who is absolutely perfect for us in the moment. And that doesn't exist. It just doesn't, right? The whole point of a relationship is to grow together. And and I've always said this to people, and this applies to any relationship. If you don't have a little bit of friction, then you're relating on a surface level. If never the two of you collide in some way, then you don't have anything deep and meaningful, right? Too much of the same nature becomes boring, and eventually you drift apart.
I mean, we could apply that to so many things, couldn't we, Aleks? I mean,
Yeah.
I notice that happening in the world right now, that we all, if we, we can only say certain things, or we can only think certain things to be correct, or to be, in a certain way. And we're losing that friction. And that's something that Davina Teresa talked about as well. And now you're sharing this in as well. If we don't have that friction, then we can't create the alchemy, we can't create the magic. And obviously in a relationship we want magic in it. We want that.
Absolutely. When we look at the god and the goddess, and this is something I talk about more so in the esoteric astrology, humans are fourth ray creatures. We are fourth ray beings, not creatures. Fourth ray beings. And the title of the fourth ray is harmony through conflict, right? But, and harmony through conflict is actually a very creative force. And what happens is, the essence of harmony through conflict is when two energies, come into contact, And the resulting contact results in friction. And from that friction, the sparks of creation, manifest. And those sparks are what we latch onto and allow us to create in the world, right? And so the fourth ray, I'm gonna give it a bit of a different name, and then you're gonna also understand what else it implies and why it's so important to the male and female energies. So as I mentioned, it's harmony through conflict, right? But there's friction involved. So if I called it ecstasy through friction, would it start to make a little bit of sense?
Yes.
It is the ray of sexual energy. And the god and the goddess, in order to create, so physical sex mimics what happens on the higher planes with the god and the goddess. Their friction of their energy intertwining and basically making love results in those sparks that allow for creation to happen.
Yeah, it just makes total sense, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
We need it. We need that, that friction, that I really love that. I really love that explanation. So in that perfect chart that we're looking at, we want to be looking for the possibility of that friction.
We want a little bit of friction. You don't want conflict, and you don't want it too easy either. If it's too easy, then it gets boring.
Agreed. I often say that to my husband, of course, when, of course, if I agreed with everything he said, how boring.
Absolutely. Somebody who agrees with everything you say, you're going to wonder what's up eventually.
Yeah. It's interesting when I talk to my girlfriends, they often say that they want somebody who's going to set good boundaries. They want somebody that's going to actually stand up to them and not allow them to walk all over them. They actually want that. They want that, yeah.
They want someone they can respect.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we're looking at the chart, often people go by the zodiac sign. This sign is compatible with that sign, and that sign is compatible with this sign, and that kind of thing. But that's not actually the way to go. And the reason being is because we have to look at the divine masculine and the divine feminine in the chart itself. Because you can have two people whose zodiac sign may be seemingly incompatible on the surface, and yet their Venus and Mars are interplaying in just the perfect way. And so you could have someone who's flighty and ungrounded and all over the place, and someone who's the opposite, very grounded, very practical, reliable. And yet their Venus and Mars, the Venus of the masculine chart interacting with the Mars of the feminine, and the Venus of the feminine chart interacting with the Mars of the masculine. When you see those cross relationships and how they function, that can indicate a harmony that supersedes what the zodiac signs would say. But the only way you know that is by looking at both charts and comparing the relationships.
So is that what I've often heard of this done in with matchmakers in India, and is that what is how they do this part?
That is part of their process. Yes, absolutely. They look for the harmony between the masculine and the feminine. And Venus and Mars are one aspect, but you also look at the sun and moon, because the sun and moon are the outgoing nature and the emotional nature, right? And then you can also look at Mercury as the communicator, because sometimes there can be a disconnect in how a couple communicates, and because of that can lead to friction. right? Or unproductive friction, I should say.
Yeah.
There's fun friction and then there's unproductive friction.
Yeah. We don't want any of that. Thank you.
And so when we look at these five, the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, it starts to give us an insight into the exchange between the two, because that's what we want to look at. In a relationship, there's exchange, there's flow, there's give and take, and when we can see that in the chart, and some people come from innately harmonious aspects, whereas others might have one or two really strong harmonious flows, and maybe they need to work on the rest. And that's what growing the relationship is about. If it was perfect right away, it might not progress very far.
Yeah, agreed. So looking back in history, who would have used this type of this type of information? Would it have been done for royal families and things like that?
Absolutely. Royal families were very big on the use of astrology. And so they would look at the astrology of prospective partners, especially if those people were going to be marrying into a position where they might sit on the throne, right? And so we think a lot of politics, and there's absolutely that, but that wasn't the only component to the decisions that were made.
So we know that some astrologers were magicians that counseled the royal family with John Dee. And so would there have been that element? They were looking from a magical perspective or the hermetic perspective, in potentially how that could influence a whole nation and a whole country.
Absolutely. And not just influence a whole nation or a whole country, but what was the nature of their character? And were they someone who would be able to hold that position of power? Or did they have a proclivity to drinking, or a proclivity to spending, or were they terrible with relations and ambassadorship, because that's what they do, right? And so that's also part of what they would look at in those particular instances. For us in the modern day, we're generally not so worried about ambassadorship.
So what type of things would we be looking for? So, for somebody who's single out there, maybe they've been single for a long time, what types of things would they be looking for in somebody's chart, in terms of a good solid foundation?
Well, here's my first thing. I would never do any kind of charting or anything like that unless I was really attracted to the person. So sometimes I get messages asking me, oh, what zodiac sign is good for me? Or what should I be looking in a prospective partner, and that kind of thing. And one of the first things I tell people off the bat is, if you do that, you're engaging from the mental realm. And the mental realm has no business in relationships, very little business, I should say, right? You have to have the desire. It is the desire of the god and the goddess that leads to the friction, that leads to the sparks of creation, right? So if the desire is missing, and because I've had people say, yeah, I looked at his chart and he seems perfect for me, so I'm dating him. And it's like, why? Are you actually attracted? Please tell me.
It's like the key point would be you're attracted to them.
Yes, the desire absolutely has to be there. So that's my rule number one. Rule number two, give it about 6 months before you even look at anything astrology. Right? And you have to get a feel for the person yourself, and your own intuition on things. Because one of the things that's really important to remember is that in a relationship, the energy flows back and forth between two people in that figure eight, right? And you don't want to take information early on, like say from astrology, and insert that into the relationship and have that be how you view the person. But once you've hit that 6-point mark, that 6-month mark, so you're attracted to them, right? You're attracted to them. You've been together for quite a bit. When you start looking at the astrology, the first thing I would suggest looking at actually is Venus and Mars, so that you can understand how they like to give and receive affection, which would be their Venus, right? And then also, what are their attractions? How do they deal with sexuality? What do they value? What are they attracted to? And when you look at those two components, right off the bat, you have a better clue, right? But also, don't forget to study your own.
Yes.
Understand how you give and receive love. Understand what it is that makes you attracted and turns you on. You have to know your own nature too. Don't just make it all about pleasing them.
Now, here's a key part. Here's a key part with what you've just said there, because I feel that most people, when going into a relationship, it's all about what is that person going to do for me? How are they going to make me feel? How are they going to fit in with my family? And all of these things. And you've hit the nail on the head, because in our tradition, as we know, we walk the path of know thyself. And when we're knowing ourselves, then we know what we are looking for. We know what we want and we don't want. And I think that's such an important thing that you said there, Aleks, because a lot of people don't know what they want. And so therefore, how would anybody else know what you want?
Right. And if you don't know what you want, how can anyone else ever fit the bill? Because you think you want this and then it changes, and then you think you want this and it changes, and then you think you want this and it changes. And especially if someone knows that they want you and is trying to make you happy, they're going to go nuts trying to fit the bill.
It's so true. And I can relate to that as well. As a woman, I mean, I don't think all women are like this, but I certainly remember being brought up to think that men had to guess what it is that I want, and if they guessed, then that was a success.
Yeah.
Then I've learned that actually you do have to actually communicate and actually give somebody a clue as to what you like and what you want, whether you like to have flowers or whether you like going out for a dinner date, or actually prefer a walk, or maybe you don't like to talk before 10 o'clock in the morning, or whatever it is. We all these things, because as a woman, I think we get stimulated and we get it's about what happens on the day-to-day stuff. That's what's attractive. That's the foreplay, if you like, isn't it? It's like, nobody's speaking to me before 10 o'clock in the morning. That's a great morning. I mean, I can speak at any time in the morning, just saying, everyone, but I'm just using that's an example. So I think it's really important that we have that level of understanding of what we want, and through initiation and through life activation, it makes it so much clearer. And that's what I found with my own relationship, especially with my husband, that it's become so much stronger, because I know what I want and I know what I am expecting.
Right. Exactly. That's why you have to study your own astrology too, right? So that you do have that clarity. Without clarity, you can't produce what you want. And even if you have what you want right in front of you, you can still not be satisfied. That's why knowing yourself is such a huge essence of everything.
So key here is, if you haven't already got a chart done, then get one done for yourself. Really, is a key, starting point. Get a life activation, get initiated, and then these are all things that are going to help you to have a successful relationship. Is that fair in saying, Aleks, do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing is, as you heal, and because in getting to know yourself, there's a lot of healing that happens.
Yeah.
And if you're coming from a past where you feel that you've made a lot of mistakes, or you've had a lot of repetition in negative themes, that also helps you to overcome things. Because up in the astral, up in the heavens, astrology is all positive, but here it comes through the filter of our personality. And so there can be negative aspects associated with our astrology that we have to work through too. Sometimes, for example, women are attracted to men, because of functions in their astrology, who just aren't right for them, or who don't want the same kind of life, and yet they chase and pursue those kind of men anyways. And men do the same. Chase down women who don't want the same kind of life, who don't have similar goals or a similar desire for the same kind of relationship.
Absolutely. We are almost out of time, and I feel like we need to have part 2 on this. I feel like we need to, revisit it. And what would be fun is next time is if we could have some relationship questions from people listening. So, next time we have Aleks on, give us your relationship questions. Give us some information about your charts, or about your husband, and then let's investigate this a little bit more, because I think it'd be really fun. Would you be up for that, Aleks?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to help people find the common ground, the common thread.
Yay!
That's a lot of
fun. Thank you, Aleks, so much for this part 1. Jin has said she's got a live question, and we're going to have to. Jin, can you hold that question for the next part, because I think we're going to have a lot of live questions, which is super exciting. Have those questions ready: relationship questions, finding love questions, and let's really delve into this. I'm really looking forward to that. And if you want to contact Aleks in the meantime, please visit her website, Master of the Stars, which I am putting in. Is it .com?
It's .com, yeah.
Yeah, masterofthestars.com. Putting in the chat. And visit her, and you can get charts done. She does amazing blogs and lots of information there. So please visit it. She's always giving. So thank you, Aleks, once again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Davina Kate.
My pleasure. And I'll see you all next time. We're going to make, the next part soon, because I think this is a hot topic.
I think so too. Nobody's going to want to wait on their questions.
I know. So sending you all lots of love, and to you and your partners everywhere. And we will see you soon. Take care.